It was spring in rural northeast Arkansas, and a family, we'll call them the Smiths, were going about their usual day-to-day lives when they began noticing some unusual activity on their property. Random items in and around their home were moved or missing altogether. Picture frames hung vacant on the wall where family photos had previously been displayed. Keys from their vehicles that were brought inside were found outside and inside them, and food seemed to vanish from their pantry overnight. While some instances could be chalked up to absent-mindedness, or possibly one of their 5 children as the culprit, Mrs. Smith grew increasingly suspicious after realizing kitchen knives had joined the list of elusive objects. Her suspicion began to curdle, churning over to dread, as the tally of the items began rapidly growing each day. Then some of Mrs. Smith's personal items began reappearing outside on the hood of her truck. Some mornings she would find the objects haphazardly thrown upon the hood. Other mornings deliberately arranged neatly around handwritten notes. I wish I knew the contents of those first disturbing notes, but whatever they contained was enough to cause the couple to thoroughly search their property, yielding no results. They were certain no one had driven up to their house. The distinguishable crunched gravel under wheels, nor tire marks in sand or soil had been present. They began locking their doors before retiring for the evening, which remained locked the following morning. The Smiths believed their late-night intruder would desist after witnessing their meticulous investigation. However, I would not be writing this if that were the case. Notes began appearing within their home, which according to my source outside the media, addressed the children by name and stated things the family had discussed during the previous evening's dinner. Honestly, I don't know how they didn't nope out of there right then, especially as things only continued to escalate. The tipping point came for the family of 7 when they discovered the latest note scrawled onto the wall inside their home. "I'm coming for you. All of you." They combed their property again, and again finding nothing. Mrs. Smith urged her husband to lock the deadbolts along with the handles that evening. He obliged as the deadbolts were fitted to a different key than the door handles. Upon waking, they found each of the deadbolts securely in place, but the door handles had all been unlocked. Fed up, Mrs. Smith and her eldest daughter went on their final patrol, this time armed with a .22 rifle. After hearing noises come from beneath their mobile home, the two pulled back the underpinning, a barrier that goes around the bottom of a manufactured home, revealing the root cause of the family's terror. Crouched under their home, amongst wrappers of missing food, family photos, random objects, lighters, knives, spare house keys, and car keys, and a makeshift bed, was a woman. She was older, her salt and pepper hair greasy and matted, her face and clothes covered in her own filth, dirt, and grime. She snarled, hissed, and growled like a rabid animal, glaring out to the two with beady, bloodshot eyes. The mother and daughter immediately recoiled and called the authorities. It took over 3 hours for police, fire, and EMT personnel to remove her. The family estimated she had been living under their home for, at absolute minimum, a week. She knew all the children's names, ages, grades, their favorite subjects in school, and other personal information about the family learned by eavesdropping from mere feet beneath them. Thankfully, this uninvited guest didn't cause any physical harm, though I'm sure the Smiths will carry some unseen emotional scars. And she was removed without any injury to responders or herself. No charges were filed on the woman, so law enforcement agencies are not required to release any of the intruder's information. Rumor has it that she was a little person, or incredibly short in stature, that escaped a mental facility a state or two over, stole a car, and drove it until it ran out of gas, then ended up walking to her final destination at the Smith's house. A crazy series of incredibly unlikely events leading to this family being traumatized. Once in custody, the woman was taken to a small local hospital where she escaped, only to be later found hiding amongst some bushes close by. As far as anyone knows, she's been returned or transferred to another mental health facility. I truly hope she received the help and supervision she required. The writer's thoughts. Why did they let things escalate so much before engaging their deadbolts? I guess since I was raised in the city, instead of in the middle of nowhere, locking doors is a habit. I personally would have been strapped with something stronger than a .22 while patrolling my property, but it's likely that's the firearm Mrs. Smith felt most comfortable and confident wielding due to its nearly non-existent recoil. And lastly, I commend her for not shooting the crazy person hiding under her floor that threatened her children and acted like a rabid animal upon being discovered. This happened a couple of nights ago. Not to me, but to my husband. My husband and I live in a decent-sized town in the UK. I have yet to find work, but he works as a chef at a local pub. This pub happens to be within walking distance from where we live, and he walks to and from work with each shift. His shifts are sporadic, but usually range from noon to close, and the pub closes at around 11 at night. The other night I was waiting for him to come home as usual. I was happily playing a video game and I heard a knock at the door. I knew it was my husband, but thought it was strange that he'd knocked. He usually has a house key with him. I went to open the door and I was horrified to see the entire left side of his face was dripping blood. I felt all the blood drain from my body as I asked what happened. He said he had gotten beat up. I immediately rushed outside, desiring nothing more than to beat up the assholes that did this to him. He went after me and held me back, saying he'd called the police. I was blinded by my thirst for revenge, but he wouldn't let me retaliate. A policeman then pulled up 5 minutes into this struggle and wanted to talk to us inside. While my husband was describing what happened, I found it difficult to compose myself. I was enraged and disconsolate. Paramedics eventually came, and I rode with him in the ambulance to the hospital, where police met with us later. He delivered his statement, all the while blood still leaking off his chin and dripping everywhere. So what happened to him was he was walking home from work as per usual when two guys approached him. They asked if he had tobacco and money, both of which he denied. They got more aggressive as they asked these questions. Then one guy hit him. This allowed the other guy to jack his iPod and make a break for it. My husband went for him, but he was slugged by the other guy again. My husband was luckily still conscious when the guys left, and seeing as he still had his phone on him, he rang the police. The two guys obviously didn't care about this, because they were still within sight as my husband talked to the operator. The two guys even had a casual conversation with each other. While at the hospital, it was revealed another man also got assaulted by a baseball bat and robbed of his phone and wallet by the same people. So far, one of the guys are being held in custody, and it's definitely him because my husband's stolen lime green iPod was found in his sock. The other guy has yet to be found. I know this isn't the scariest story, but opening the door to see your husband dripping blood is a traumatizing sight, and I thought I'd share this. There's actually a news article published about this incident, but being as it took place 5 minutes away from my home, I don't want it to be shared for security reasons. As for my husband, he is fine. He had his wounds glued shut and sports a swollen cheek and a bad shiner, but he feels hardly any pain. It just bled so much. I only regret not being there to protect him. This is also going to court. I hope the two jackasses get a hefty sentence. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you would like to gain early access to all of my content, as well as some other cool perks, go check out my Patreon page. It's a cool way for you guys to get some perks as well as support the channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one. And just remember, It's always scarier if it's true.